Hello and welcome to the Gold Goats and Guns Hour here on YouTube and Periscope. My name is Tom Luongo. I hope you're all having a great day. It's Monday. It's February 4th, 2019. I think I can remember what day it is on most good days anymore. And we're getting ready to get started. So, tonight I want to talk about... Interesting. I don't know that Restream is actually working. Comments are actually working at all now. So that'll be interesting. We'll see how that plays itself out as we go along tonight. All right. So I'm going to shut that down and just pop out the YouTube chat and we'll go from there. Good evening, Thordium. How are you? Just checking out to see what's going on. There we go. Alrighty. I want to talk about Donald Trump. I want to talk about Syria. And I want to do so by telling you a story. Okay, so one of my favorite books, certainly when I was in college, but even today, I haven't read it in years, but I've read it probably 3 times now, series 3 times. It's a 2-part series by Stephen Donaldson called Mordaunt's Need, Mirror for Dreams and A Man Writes True. And if you haven't read them, and you like fantasy, good fantasy, not trashy fantasy, good fantasy, then I would absolutely recommend them. They're one of my favorites. Donaldson is absolutely one of the few fantasy writers that I actually like. I like most of his work. But these books in particular are important because, well, they bear a lot on our current situation. So I was arguing with Buck last night and this morning behind the scenes on Twitter. And I've had the same argument and with people in the past, but I want to spin you a tale. I want you to understand, here's the setup for the story. I want you to see if you can figure out what the parallels are here. So the story starts with a protagonist, a woman who has been so thoroughly beaten down and ignored by her father that she lives in an apartment all by herself. And she barely even recognizes her own existence, except when she's looking in a mirror. And in typical fantasy fashion, she's looking in the mirror one day and and a man falls through it and transports her to a magical realm that she's supposedly the hero of for some reason. She has no idea. She's the hero of the story. She winds up being the protagonist. And of course, the arc of the story is her coming of age, her understanding her own power as a human being and as a woman and everything else. And it's really well done. It's outstanding. But she's this very, very set upon person. She's not an active agent for a long, long period of time. And one of the things that's frustrating about reading these books is that no one is an active agent. So, including the king. Now, King Joyce is a fascinating character because he is modeled after, say, Theoden from The Lord of the Rings, right? He's old and shrinking, and he was a great king once, but now he's not powerful at all. He's a classic Osiris figure of his kingdom is falling into disrepair. The enemies are at the gates, and he's doing nothing at all to stop it. Now he's joined, and all he does all day long is play checkers with his mad confidant, this magician, and the two of them play checkers all day long and don't seem to do anything else. Now, obviously, we're reading the story, and we know that King Joyce has a bigger plan. We can see it in the way Donaldson describes his reactions to people complaining to him and urging him to do something to help his people out. And you can see this. And the story is very much about how he has to feign weakness in order to draw out his enemies, to find out who they are, because they don't even know who their enemies are. To find out their enemies, play the long game, draw out his enemies, and at the same time, ignore everyone around them, including all the people who are going to help him survive this. They have to grow up on their own without a father figure, without anybody, without any support whatsoever. Now, that's the setup. That's the whole first volume, is 650 pages of this stuff, of them going back and forth and trying to figure out what is going on, and to root out all of the enemies of the country of Orison. That's what's going on. It's great. It's really well done. It's it's incredibly dense and very, very cool. But at the end of the day, you know that this is going to wind up with the hero, Teresa, coming of age, everybody winning, and the kingdom being saved. We know this is going to happen. They're going to be taken. Everybody's going to be pushed absolutely to their breaking point. Since it's Donaldson, most people are going to get stabbed, beaten, raped, this, that, everything. All sorts of horrible things are going to happen to everyone. Because nothing worth winning is going to wind up is going to be worth the suffering ultimately. And will it be worth it in the end? Who knows, right? But the figure of King Joyce is very interesting because he's the opposite. He winds up in the end being the opposite of the classic king figure of the weakened, blind king, willfully blind king who has allowed the institutional order to fall into repair, his kingdom to fall into disrepair, and chaos. And chaos is all around him. But there's nothing he can do to stop it other than do exactly what he's doing, which is nothing. And he doesn't want to do nothing. You can see it in his eyes. You can see it in the way Donaldson describes it. He wants to do what needs to be done. And his partner in crime, his confidant, Havelock, keeps looking at him and going, "You don't get it." He refuses to let everybody go. He has to in order to win this game, he's going to have to alienate everyone in order to win. And we know this. And we're given enough clues as the reader, and even the protagonists are given just enough clues to leave the whole thing that they have to maintain their loyalty on faith. King has a plan. We don't know what that plan is, but the king has a plan. Does this sound familiar? This is where the MAGA crowd is. Donald Trump has a plan. Donald Trump is beset on all sides by all of these evil people, and he's drawn them all out. But the difference between Donald Trump and King Joyce is that Donald Trump lives in the real world, and King Joyce lives in a constructed artificial fiction. And King Joyce, because Stephen Donaldson has the control over how the story is going to end up, is going to wind up being victorious in the end. And Teresa's going to grow up to be a phenomenal woman and marry the prince and all of this stuff. And it's all going to work out beautifully in the end, and the fairy tale ending is coming. There is no fairy tale ending. Okay? And we are Teresa Morgan. We are the protagonist. We are the hero that needs to understand that there is no help coming. At the end of the day, King Joyce's plan was to do nothing and to allow everyone around him to fill in the vacuum, the power vacuum. If the kingdom was worth saving, everyone else was going to have to stand up and decide for themselves whether they wanted to save it. That's the lesson of this book. All the outlying provinces, Teresa herself, Garrison, her partner, and for all intents and purposes, partner in crime, all of them, the two core main protagonists, have to grow up and deal with this problem on their own because they're not going to get any other help. There's no cavalry coming. There's no one here to save the day. If we're going to do this, we're going to do this. Donald Trump is not our savior. And I've been saying this for a long time. I've been saying this since the day I started posting on Periscope. I've been reminding you on a regular basis that if this country is worth saving, it's going to be the people of the United States that save it. And we did the first part of it. We elected Trump. We didn't elect Hillary Clinton. But we haven't followed through. And now we're turning on each other and shooting the messengers of, oh, by the way, the messengers like me and other people who are saying, look, there's no one coming. There's no hero around the corner. Trump is not Orange Jesus. He's not going to save us from anything. And calling him out for being weak and ineffectual is not treason against him. It's not a cult. If anybody's being disloyal, it's Trump. Because Trump promised us one thing and is doing the exact fucking opposite. He makes pronouncements on one day in December, and then 6 weeks later in February says, well, you know, we have to stay in Syria forever because Israel. Do you understand? If I understand that, and I appreciate and I adore the fact that conservatives in general are very loyal people. They score very high on loyalty. They feel their conscientiousness leads them to want to, quote unquote, save the country. But that does not mean blind, willful obedience. Let me give you and if you don't think that I've ever had to deal with this before, let me take you back 17 and a half years. In 2001, I was the founding member, chair, and driving force behind the Alachua County Libertarian Party here in Gainesville. Matter of fact, that organization started in my living room. By 9/11, I was going to Libertarian State Party conventions, looking, I was a member of the executive committee of the State Party of Florida. Okay? I think we had just gotten done with our annual, with the annual convention. 9/11 happens, and I used to go into, on a regular basis, I used to go around, drop off literature, the LP literature, and and whatnot to various businesses around the county, including my favorite gun shop of choice, the one that I recommended to everyone who was interested in buying a gun. I'm not going to name names today because that would be rude. They don't deserve that. But we were always welcome there. This is a store I spent thousands of dollars in. This is a store that I sent thousands of dollars worth of business. And I remember being told that 5 days after 9/11, get the fuck out. Why? 9/11. 9/11, everybody became radicalized. Same thing is happening with Donald Trump. It's happened with Donald Trump. Conservatives refuse to see it. And they make excuses for him. Well, he's not doing everything on your time frame, so therefore he's a bad guy. No, fuck you. He's not doing it. Period. Talk's cheap, whiskey costs money, and foreign policy is the lifeblood of the empire. And I don't give a fuck who you are. If you make that argument to me, I'm not listening to it. Because that's your excuse. You're willing to make that excuse. That's fine. You're being disloyal to me and everybody else listening to who's a part of this community, who sees things for how they are and wants to make things better. And you are sitting there stuck in your own willful ideological blindness that Trump is the only answer. He's not the only answer. You're the answer. What can you do? If you're not willing to do whatever it takes, then you're not willing to do it. And you're just farming it out like everybody else. Tough love. It sucks to hear it. I've had that same riot act read to me by my wife multiple times in my life. And she was right. And I'm just enough of an asshole to argue about it for a couple of minutes, and then go, yeah, well, shit, you're right. There is no plan. There is no cavalry going to ride in and save the day. This is nothing. I've been having this conversation with the MAGA crowd since April 7th, 2017, when Trump bombed al-Sharat. And we knew then that he was willing to cut a deal with the neocons to stay in power. Because he doesn't have the strength of character to burn it all down. He had the opportunity. I was thinking about this today. You say, okay, well, he's beset on all sides by all these people. He's got Mueller and this and everything else. Yes, exactly. Trump didn't have the balls to roll the dice and trust us to have his back if he fired Mueller and the Democrats went after him for an impeachment hearing. We would have all hit the friggin' phones immediately. We would have hit, if he had done that before the midterm elections, there's no way the Democrats would have won the midterms the way they did. No way would they have won that many seats. No way would they have vote harvested 12 seats after the fact. No way. 3 governorships, 2 Senate seats. No way. He didn't have the balls to do it. He should have fired Mueller and said the whole thing is a crock of shit. It's a witch hunt, and I'm not standing for it. I don't like Lincoln, but I got news for you. Lincoln was effective. He was effective at doing exactly what he needed to do to save the Union. We're well past the Constitution here. Lincoln destroyed that shit when Lee surrendered at Appomattox. Trump today could just as easily have gone full Lincoln and put somebody from Congress in fucking jail. I don't care if it was legal or not. Put the fear of God into these people. Use the friggin' presidency for what it's meant to be. No, it's not easy for me to say. It's exactly what needed to be said. Don't make excuses for him. He has done nothing but play footsie with these people who are all sharks. They are rolling him up, and they're rolling him in flour, and they're going to go for the wet spot, and they're going to fuck him over badly in the next 6 months. We were talking about this on Slack today, and Mark Bogosian made a very good point. Said that Senate vote on Thursday where they told him he wasn't allowed to pull out of Syria was a dry run for how it would go for an impeachment vote in the Senate. 68-23, folks. The Republicans don't have his back in any impeachment vote that Pelosi starts. Why do you think Pelosi's acting the way she is? That's why he had to back off 48 hours later. Sunday morning, go on Face the Nation and mealy-mouthed his way through that whole fucking interview. That's the reality. And he brought it on himself because he should have rolled the dice and said, this is wrong. This is ridiculous. I'm shutting this down, and I'm putting Wiseman in jail. Because one of those fucking assholes should have just been put in jail. Should have been arrested at a minimum. Start the frickin' war. Go to the mat. Go right there. Go to the mat right then and there. Do it. If they throw you out of office, so what? At least you went down trying. At least you went down swinging, and at least you don't go down looking like a cartoon of the figure that the left has been painting us as for years, enabling these people to take over, to make it as easy as possible for them to convince the center of this country that the Republicans and the deplorables and the rest of them all have a fucking answer. You're enabling the freaking Marxist crazies to take this place over. Do you want to win, or do you want, what's your goal? Because as far as I'm concerned, you go down on your principles. You fight until the end, until your principles, period. It's done. Trump is useless. Hillary's done, dude. She's not coming back. She's not going to run the country. She would have never been put in power. They would have impeached Trump, put Pence in place, and would have moved on. We would have been exactly where we are now. Hillary is 2016. She's out of the picture unless she runs for 2020. Don't make 2016 arguments in 2019. Seriously. This is exactly the point. You cannot get it. People like you, Jins, cannot get it through your head that we're well beyond November 9th, 2016. History didn't end that day. It just got started. The time is good. He's done. They know exactly what happens every time he makes a big ask. He settles. The only thing he can do now is continue to throw big asks at us. What he's doing is he's imploring us by saying we need to get out of Syria. We are spending $50 billion a year on this. And we need to get out of this. They're not going to impeach Pence. Pence is their friggin' kept dog. Are you kidding me? They have Pence completely controlled. He's half of the fucking problem. They'll leave Pence. They can beat Pence in a 2020 election. If they had impeached Trump last year over firing Mueller, they'd have left Pence in place like Gerald Ford, and then we would have gotten this. It would have been the same thing. It would have been Gerald Ford. He gets trounced by fucking, by an upholstery cushion, for Christ's sake. It doesn't matter. Write a fucking name on it, and that's who wins the presidency. Biden, Harris, Booker, I don't know, pick one. And, at that point, the Republicans wouldn't be able to elect an upholstery cushion. They wouldn't be able to elect anybody for the presidency. No, Trump's not even pretending to be in charge, Mike Bernard. That's the point. He's now at that. You have to understand, I'm not saying that Trump isn't still fighting. He's just not fighting effectively. I'm not saying that he doesn't want to change the world and drain the swamp and all this stuff. He's just not capable of doing it. There's a fundamental difference between those two things. There's an infinite gulf between criticizing the man's effectiveness and criticizing his intentions. I'm not criticizing his intentions. I'm being generous. Because there's a black-pilled part of me that thinks this is all just a fucking game to him. But I don't really believe that. That's the imp of the perverse sitting on my shoulder going, it could really just be this. But I don't really buy that. I'll be generous and I'll give him that. In the same way that I'm willing to be generous to Bernanke, for Christ's sake. You're thinking he saved the world when all he did was make things worse by orders of magnitude. You guys have got to realize that this is a freaking problem. It's a real problem. I'm sorry if it's going to hurt me. I'm sorry if it's going to hurt it. I'm sorry if it's going to hurt me. I'll lose 5 more of you and I'll gain 100. I don't give a fuck. The whole point is that at the end of the day, I have to be honest. And I'm not going to just sit here and, mealy-mouth it because it might cost me $20 a month. Fuck that. I'll turn on Super Chats and get $20 right here for all of you fuckers. In Super Chats alone, just for stating what I just said. I've been doing this shit without you for fucking 2.5 years now. I can do it again. Piss on it. I'm done. I'm just absolutely fucking done. I don't care anymore. I'm tired of listening to it. I really am. You will come back in a year and you will be like, I'm sorry, Tom, you were right. Because you fucking all did anyway. Because any one of you that have any friggin' any amount of intellectual and emotional honesty came crawling back a year after Al Sharot and went, yep, Tom, you were right. Sorry. Don't like it, leave. I don't need you. And I'm sorry if it hurts. I'm sorry if you don't like it. It's not I'm not here to make things better. I'm not here to put Band-Aids on your hurts. That's for you to deal with. Life is hard. Shoulder your load. Pull the Jordan Peterson. Clean your fucking room up. Shoulder your load. Life is hard. Get over it. Life's tough. Get a hard hat. This is the reason I get. Why do you think I'm angry? You think I'm angry because I'm checking out? I'm angry because you're not helping us who see what the fucking problem is actually solve the problem. You're just running out the freaking clock. What's next then? You have to prepare for the post-Trump world. Trump is already done. So now it's just a matter of, running this out. What comes next? What comes next is that the Democrats have a 70-30 chance of winning in 2020 unless, they fuck it up, which is very possible because they're just as incompetent as he is. Why did Trump give up? Because he didn't want to die, I guess, or he didn't want to. I don't know why he gave up. Any number of reasons. They threatened his family. They threatened him. He cut a deal to keep his business intact. I don't think any of those things are actually going to hold true. By the way, the more he caves to them, the more they're going to roll him over for even having the temerity to stand up to them in the first place. They're going to destroy him. They're going to destroy everything about him and his business and everything else before they're done. Green Penguin. The reason I continue to follow Tom is even when I disagree with him, he, one, tells it the way he sees it, and two, eventually I see that he's right. Thank you, man. We've been together a while now. Green Penguin's one of the first guys to show up in the scopes. He was one of my very first patrons. I think you were my first patron, as a matter of fact. Hey, Tom, your black-pilled hunch is probably more right than you know. Trump was not scrupulous about who he sold apartments, etc. to in his buildings. He made a lot of money off scumbags laundering money. They're going to roll him over on this. They are. And even if they don't, even if all they do is they just keep saying, oh, by the way, if you don't play ball on this, then this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. Do I let my goats have it as well? Yeah, when they get out of line. So, Jins, who were you on Twitter, on Periscope? Just so I know who I'm talking to. It's not even that I feel betrayed, Christy Anderson. Christy Anderson said, you feel betrayed by Trump, that's why you're angry. No, actually, I gave up all the betrayal about Trump years ago. Okay? Honestly, months ago. I wouldn't say years ago, but months ago. I gave that up a while ago. What I'm now frustrated with is I'm having to continually hit the same. Oh, hi, Stormy. How are you, love? So you are back. Wow. I thought you, okay. It's great that you're here. Okay. So, the point is, I'm not angry with Trump at this point. Now I'm angry with the split within the conservative community, within the Trump community, the ones who are still hanging on to the hope when they shouldn't be, because that hope is now counterproductive, is what I'm trying to say. And that's what's frustrating. That's what's got me angry. It's not about Trump anymore. And I said this months ago. It really isn't. I'm past that. Trump is literally a non-entity to me at this point. I'm like, yeah, whatever. You're useless. Okay, let's move on. It's every time I go one step further down the path of saying, look, there's no hope left. There's no cavalry coming. I have to hear the same stuff over and over and over again. And I still see the same people making the same arguments that they made a year and a half ago. And I'm like, really? and I'm the bad guy? Can you not see how this is not helping the situation at all? I know that, and the thing is, I understand that we're dealing with. I understand we're dealing with people who, this is hard to say, right? I understand loyalty and conscientiousness and all that. I get it. You will not find a more loyal person than me. I have spent so much of my life making bad decisions, being loyal to the wrong people. My family included. We can have a laundry list of employers I spent too long at, or this has happened multiple times in my life and in my career. Nothing new. I value loyalty like you would not believe, but I'm not loyal to politicians. I'm not loyal to the state. I'm not loyal to America, the legal entity. I'm at best loyal to America, the philosophical idea. I have a different set of priorities, something I was trying to tell William Justice 2 months ago. He didn't understand. He kept saying the same damn things that Buck was saying to me this afternoon in DM, and it really ticked me off. Which is that, look, man, I have a different agenda than you. And we can work together, but you have to understand where I am going to be critical of your agenda. If I feel it's counterproductive to my goals, and my goals are to get all the friggin' troops out of Afghanistan and Syria and to bring them home from Okinawa and the rest of it, because the swamp is empowered by the runoff of the empire. It's filled with the runoff of the empire. POTUS hasn't controlled foreign policy since the day he took office. Dragan, I mean, I'll support Tulsi Gabbard, but I don't trust her. I think she's a bit of an opportunist, but for right now, she's very interesting. El Vaquero, I don't think it's as much as Trump betrayed us. I think it's more that the swamp is swallowing him. Yes, I agree. And he's not strong enough person to stop it. And he doesn't have the chops. This is the way my friend of mine put it to me right after the midterms. He's like, it's so obvious to me now that this guy doesn't have the chops. I thought he would, but he doesn't. He doesn't have the chops to survive in this environment. And Mark Bogosian has educated us at length at how vile the deep state is and how relentless they are. We can see it in the Brexit stuff. We can see it everywhere. These people will not stop. And so sometimes you can't just keep taking it. At times you have to go on the offensive. And when you go on the offensive in politics, you have to go for the kill, and you cannot back down. You cannot say, well, we're pulling out of Syria, and then let half your cabinet walk like Mattis and the rest of them, and then turn around 6 weeks later and fucking cave because Mitch McConnell threatened you with a vote. No, you fucking go after them harder. And you go right to the people and you go, no, we're going to do this. Everybody in Washington doesn't want me to do it, and yet we're going to do it anyway. And it's at that point we don't sit back and go, is he going to do it? Will he do it? Will he don't? I don't know. He's a fucking kind of a feckless jackass. Maybe he won't do it. I don't know. No, we get on the fucking phone and we call Mitch McConnell and we call fucking Rubio and we call all those assholes and we tell them, if you guys impeach him, you will not be reelected. If you guys impeach him, you better not go back to your fucking home. This is what we voted for. This is what we want. The people in Britain are freaking angry over what's going on in Brexit. If you're so goddamn angry about what's going on in this country, your Twitter feed is not going to get it done. Yes, and when you go for the kill, yes, Mark Bogosian, you are going to pay, and Trump is unwilling to pay the price. He should have paid the price. He should have been a martyr. It would have been better. If he had been impeached and thrown out of office and we move on, fine. Then everything's out in the open. And we know what we're up against. This mealy mouth shit doesn't get anybody anything. Look, Stoyanovich reminds us, look, the only hope the U.S. has to avoid Russia's fate in 1989 is fading quickly. These people think they're smart, but they're all just greedy like the communists were. Yes, I know. Yes, James, I agree. Ike warned us in 1963 to think 4 to 8 years was going to fix this was too optimistic. I was optimistic. I agree. I think we're going to have to go through one more iteration of suck before it can actually get better, if it's going to get better at all. But I'm with Martin Armstrong at this point. I absolutely believe that there's no repairing the political system at this point. But let's not, okay, if that's the case, that's fine. If you would rather have Trump than Pence or anybody else, that's fine. So would I. But that's not to say that Trump is going to be effective. And Trump is not going to save us. And there comes a point when we have to put away childish things and understand what the actual story is. Because I don't buy that a lot of people in this movement get it. I still read the same people on Twitter and they don't get it. Dmitry Orlov says that the coming collapse of the U.S. would be much worse than the collapse of the USSR. Oh, of course it will be. The USSR didn't run the world. But Orlov is also a little out over his skis and thinks in how far that he thinks he understands the situation in America. Because, as much as God saved me from, God saved me from the MAGA peds, saved me from former Soviet leftists, okay? Because, look, 45-year-old Russian leftists don't or 50-year-old Russian leftists don't impress me. The Saker, Orlov, the rest of them, they're very good about certain things, but when it comes to analyzing what's going on in the United States, please. No. I'm like, bitch, please. Because every time Orlov thinks, he does this every article of his I read. I like Orlov for about the first 2/3 of every article he writes, and then the last third he goes off in the fucking fantasy world because he can't let go of his inherent leftism. And then make some stupid friggin' comment about peak oil or this, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. And I'm like, when the fuck did you become an expert on the oil market? Okay? No. Like, seriously. But by definition, the Soviet Union was never the reserve currency of the world. It was never the core economy of the world. It was never the core economy of the debt and the financial centers and everything else. So of course the fall of the Soviet Union will not compare to the fall of the United States. Can't possibly. It's an order of magnitude or 5 times the order of magnitude problem that the Soviet Union ever was. Saker lives in Florida somewhere. He lives in Central Florida somewhere. Yes, Trump was a Hail Mary and he wasn't Hillary. Right. So I don't understand the cult around Donald Trump. This is the point. This is the point I've been trying to make from the beginning. I don't understand why anybody would want to fall for Donald Trump as our savior and cult figure. It doesn't make any sense. Dude, at the end of the day, it was Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. We rolled the dice with Donald fucking Trump. Orlov is desperate to see the U.S. fall like the USSR. Agreed, Andreas Walsh. He's been arguing this point for 15 years. I've been reading Dmitry Orlov for 15 years on and off. It's the same shtick. I mean, again, I don't dislike the man. He's a very good writer, and he's a very good political, and he's a very good study of human nature and of politics and whatnot. But he's not right on a lot of things. It's like there's a lot of people that are that way. I'm not right about everything. It happens. None of us are right. None of us have a fucking crystal ball. We all have our blind spots and our shortcomings and all of that stuff. I'm not, it is what it is. But come on, man. I mean, the crazy amount of guys like Orlov and the Saker have to believe that the United States is going to fall harder so that it'll validate for them that the Soviet Union wasn't that bad, because they need to do that. Because as leftists and as fundamentally as Marxists, they want to believe that. They want to believe that the cartoon of Marx's version of capitalism is gonna fuck things up worse than the cartoon of McCarthyite socialism, or McCarthy's view of socialism. They need that, okay? In the same, because they're just as ideologically driven as the Marxists on the American left, and unfortunately as the hardcore MAGA-peds are on the American right at this point. I mean, Cassandra Fairbanks was right when she just said, look, dude, it's not a cult. And when she said that, I said that to some guy on Twitter one day, and I just went like, you're so right. Of course you're so right. Do I like what Trump has done domestically? Some of it. Tax cuts were good. Spending an extra $120 billion on the military? No, not so much. I don't like the fact that he's running a $1.2 trillion deficit on the edge of a global recession and rising interest rates, while the Fed is trying to normalize its balance sheet so it has enough policy room to be able to lower interest rates into a global recession, and Trump is telling them to raise protection, to raise tariffs and run deficits that make even Obama fucking blanch. So no, on balance, but some of the individual things, yes. I love the fact that he's trying to clean up the court system. He's trying to stop the flow of opioids, and I understand like some of the moves he's making over in like Pakistan, behind the scenes in Pakistan and Afghanistan and whatnot, to help stop the CIA flow of opioids into the country. I get all that, and I appreciate those things. I do. I appreciate the little things he can get done. But I think I told you this 2 years ago, that presidents are going to be allowed to tinker with domestic policy while foreign policy stays in the hands of the experts and hands of the grown-ups. I told you this. I know I said this 50 or 60 fucking times. Now, is anything that has happened contradicted that statement? Yeah, Trump sits there and lets Browder, of all people, abuse him on CNBC. He doesn't have any balls. Revenue neutral is not a tax cut. Exactly. It's not a tax cut. Making a tax, rejiggering the tax code so that it's quote unquote revenue neutral is a win for the Democrats, who never want to see government spending go down. In order for you to lower government spending, you're going to have to take a couple of quarters of GDP contraction, because we count government spending as part of GDP. And since we've gutted savers so terribly in this country, it'll take at least 2 quarters for that savings that'll come from the lowering of government spending, and that will naturally flow into the pocketbooks of people who will then either save or extinguish debt. It'll take at least 2 quarters for that to start to filter its way back into the investment side of the ledger. And no one in Washington's willing to do that. Certainly Trump's not. He sits around and watches Fox fucking News all day. The Fed has already punted. They already baked the fucking financial crisis into the books in this last week. They just told everybody, we're scared to death. We just reversed policy 45 days. We went from everything's fine, we're raising rates, we're running off the $600 billion on the balance sheet on our balance sheet in 2019 while Trump runs an obscene fucking budget deficit. We're doing it. Everything's good. The economy's fine. We're doing it. 45 days later. No. Sorry, we're actually thinking about starting more QE. Dude, that should scare you. Mike Bernard, they're impotent because eventually we were always going to reach this state. because central bankers don't have any answers. All they have is print money. And there comes a point when you can't print anymore. We're past debt saturation, and we're now into debt lunacy. Yeah, Putin would have, Brett Harris, reckless abandon, I agree with you. Putin would have told him everything about Browder. He should have been the first swamp rat to go. We know all that. How far are we since Helsinki? July 2018, Putin mentions Browder, and since then, Trump has been neutered bit by bit by bit by bit. For fuck's sake, more QE. Yes, no. If you read their statement from the other day, they removed all the language that the market wanted, which is why the markets are rallying. No more, no, we're suspending, we're leaving the door open for everything, which means, of course, that we're leaving the door open for reversing course with more QE. Yes. Yeah, no, yes, North on 60, government spending is part of GDP. It's gross national spending. How do you think they get GDP growth? They deficit spend. Oh, the Steve Hudson, of course. When they print money, they're the first ones to get it, and the banks are the banks. They and the banks are the first ones to get it, and they get to spend tomorrow's money at yesterday's prices, and steal the vig. That's the scam. In the shortest way imaginable. That's your bon mot. That's your takeaway tonight. The Fed prints tomorrow's money at yesterday's prices to steal the difference from everybody in the world every day. Peter Schiff, we're not going full on super QE. The IMF is going to step in because the central banks will not be able to contain this. We're seeing it all across European bond yields. You're seeing it everywhere. Of course, Fox's controlled opposition is owned by Rupert Murdoch. He's one of the arch neocons. He owns the Wall Street Journal. Trump did take a lot of shit over increasing the deficit with his tax cuts, Stan. The Office of Management and Budget said he would add over $1 trillion over 10 years, something like that, like $200 billion a year. But look, and this is a point that Stockman makes all the time, and he's right. We needed to cut spending, but we don't really have a whole lot of spending to cut because most of what the government spends money on is Social Security, Medicare, and interest payments. They're really not fighting over very much money. Oh, yeah. Our GDP is calculated as 25% of GDP. The government spends $4 trillion a year. Our GDP is $17 or $18 trillion. Do the math. Will the IMF be able to solve it? I don't think so. But it'll be a stopgap. I've said this before, and I'll continue to say it. Go back and read Murray Rothbard's very short pamphlet, What Has Government Done to Our Money? It's about 65 pages long. You can get a PDF for free over at the Mises Institute, though I think everybody should own a copy of it, a physical copy of it. You should read it at least twice in your life, because he goes over the reasons why gold, why 100% reserve banking standards, and all of this stuff. But then he also goes through the history of Bretton Woods and the breakdown of the London gold pool, and culminating in the end of and Nixon closing the gold window on August 15th, 1971. Understand that we didn't go from Bretton Woods to the fixed floating exchange rate regime. There were two other monetary systems, very short-lived, that existed in the interim. We went from the London gold pool to those two others. I don't remember them off the top of my head. I haven't read the book in years. But Rothbard goes through it, and he explains that these were all different monetary systems. And then 4 years later, or 3 years later, in 71, Nixon just decoupled the world from gold completely, and then we moved on. And I think that's exactly the same kind of thing we're going to have going forward here. We're going to go from our current system to one where the interim thing is going to be the IMF is going to try and solve the problem. And then that's not going to work. And then something else they're going to try and tie it to something else. Eventually, we're going to get back to some kind of gold cover clause, some kind of gold. We're going to tie the world monetary system to gold or something. There's going to be a crypto component to it, almost assuredly. And part of it might even not exist as one particular reserve currency, because the Chinese don't want the yuan to be the world's reserve currency. They don't want that. They understand that that's a burden that no one country should have to bear. They've made this abundantly clear. They don't want it. The assholes on Wall Street keep thinking that they do, and all the fucking China baiters and like Bolton and the rest of them keep thinking that that's what they want, because these guys can only think in terms of how they would do things. All they do is project. You got to remember that most of these people are not fucking smart. All they do is project what they would do if given that power, and then apply that to their opponents. They don't actually analyze their opponents. And I really wish they would. When was the last time I looked at the OCC's quarterly derivative reports? $200 trillion notional value, much of it's stuff with FDIC insured subsidiaries. I haven't looked at it recently. I know that the number is insane. And I know that Deutsche Bank is sitting on an insane amount of is sitting on most of the interest rate derivatives, the interest rate swap derivatives that are cleared through Europe. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. And if Deutsche Bank winds up in a liquidity crisis, we lose the ability for Europe to clear their interest rate swaps. That's bad. And yes, the Mark Bogosian, only 200 trillion pikers. Exactly. Deutsche Bank's in the quadrillion dollar range, I think. It's something retarded like that. So just, yeah, it's very, very scary. Pat, my answer to that is no, unfortunately. Well, I don't know about unfortunately, but I can tell you that no one coming behind Trump who wants the job is going to be competent. Only the most venal and vile are actually going to take the job at this point. Who the hell would want to be president? And that's why we're headed right over the cliff. So it doesn't matter whether Trump betrays us, doesn't betray us, is useless, isn't useless. At this point, he needs to continue to dog whistle to us what we need to do. That's the best. That's all he can do at this point. And we need to, and we as a community need to understand this point, get over the rest of it, and just move on. Well, Cliff High was reading me circa last year. I think that Bitcoin has that possibility. It's certainly within the crypto space, but I don't know. We'll see. I think a deep recession will make the migrant caravan stop and the illegals go home. You know what would also make the migrant caravan stop? Not sanctioning people to the point of starvation all across the world. That's a good start. Not trying to overthrow their governments. No one has any idea what to do with Deutsche Bank. Stoyanovich, I agree with you. They'll be merged, and then the merged company will fail. They'll just kick the can down the road for as long as they can. It's a shame. I hate to go on these rants like this. I really do. I don't like to have them. I don't like to get upset and angry with people whose intentions are noble. I really do. And this is probably too late to say this because I've already alienated everybody else. But the truth of the matter is that I hate to do this. But every once in a while, the Riot Act has to be read. And I know that everybody has good intentions and they have their heart in the right place and they want to do the right thing. I get it. I really do. I do. I absolutely do. I feel for everybody who feels so frustrated by all of this. But again, there comes a time when you have to be willing to look at yourself as honestly as possible and say, is it right? Am I right? Is Tom right? Maybe a little blunt. May suck to hear it. Maybe he's right. I don't know. I'm certainly happy to be wrong. Yeah, breaking. U.S. Attorney's Office subpoenas Donald Trump's inaugural committee. They're rolling everybody up. They want to make sure that nobody in their right mind would ever go to work for Trump that isn't a complete and utter jackass. The road to hell is paved with great intentions. Trump had to have the chops to go after these people. For real. I don't know how to not be blunt, Stormy. I really don't. I mean, I try, but it just comes off as fake, and you know it. So, it's Christy. Every time I do one of these, it's now. Of course, they're going to do that today. Why? Because he's going to give the State of the Union address tomorrow night, where he's going to announce an emergency. He's supposed to announce a state of emergency, so he can get the wall built, and they don't want him to build the wall, so they're going to do this shit now. Don't you see how these things are all connected? Anti-state. On a lighter note, Tom, my niece's goats survived the negative 50-degree weather. Good for your niece's goats. They are really hardy creatures, but negative 50 is rough, man. I mean, mine were crying about 30 degrees, so. And Sappy's a fat bitch, let me tell you. Holy Jesus, is she kind of round. I don't know. I will say this, though, tonight, guys. FYI, we've got 85 people in the stream right now. We've held that number for now close to the last 25 or 30 minutes. So I think that's freaking fantastic to have 85 people in here. Things are really starting to take off here on YouTube. Probably by Friday, we'll have super chats up and running. And at that point, we'll do the guarantee. If you want your comment to be guaranteed that I'll read it, donate to the channel. Otherwise, we'll just continue to do things the way we've been doing it, and hopefully we'll be able to live with it. But this is a record, 86 people concurrently in the chat. So those of you who are here for the first time, sorry for the unbelievable number of F-bombs tonight. But it's kind of raw and unfiltered, especially on a night like tonight. I tried to keep it together. Usually the first 15, 20 minutes, I keep it clean. I usually have my, might have quasi-prepared commentary, and then we go into La La Land. So Super Chats is a function where you guys will be able to donate directly to the channel, however much money you want, from $1 up or what I think. I don't know what the minimum is. I'm sure it's $1. And we'll go from there. And the idea is that I will read your comment come hell or high water. And it's a means by which to support your favorite live streamers without having to go to, advertising and all that. Not that advertising happens on the live streams. 20,000 to go to be sticks. I think we'll get there this year. Do you have to use so many cuss words, dude? Exactly. Well, say what you want about National Socialism. God, I flubbed it. Ugh. Well, say what you want about National Socialism, dude. At least it's an ethos. Get it right the second time. Yeah. It's an hour. That's about a show. I am the geopolitical Henry Rollins. To be honest with you, I'd rather be the geopolitical Bill Burr. He's funnier, but I'll take Henry Rollins. I got a lot of respect for Henry. Sticks Hexenhammer 666, the guy who doesn't wear a shirt. Did I part ways with Halsey? No, only like as a writer. I'm going to be on with Halsey and Dustin tomorrow night. Actually, I only use fewer hand gestures because I've got the thing set tight so that you only see the wall behind you. Because, you know, if I were to pan out, you'd see that the wall is literally as wide as you see behind you, and the rest of it is like my door and my base is right over there. So that's it. Otherwise, I would actually pull back, and I would. Everybody says, you know, make Tom sit on his hands, he'll shut up. So, yeah, I will be on with Halsey tomorrow night. I think probably 10 o'clock, something like that. I don't think we've set the time, but I think we're going to try and go for that on every Tuesday. So it'll be another opportunity for me to let what's left from my hair down, and we'll go on. Thank you for wearing a shirt. Oh, dude, I'm sorry. I don't take my shirt off in public unless I scare the neighbors. That's just way too much hair for any group of people to have to suffer through. Italy. Okay, so yeah, the best news of the day, Dragon M, thank you for bringing it up, is Italy blocked the EU recognizing random dude Guaido out of Venezuela. Really big news out of that. I'm actually going to try and keep the shirt on. Keep your shirt on, dude. So my wearing pants, yes, I am wearing pants. They're pajamas, but I'm wearing pants. I work from home, so I work in pajamas all day long. Are you kidding? Flannel is the way to go. But the Italy is looking to really sow their I think they're getting riled up to do some real damage to the EU. Remember, this happened within the Committee of Foreign Ministers. This is the first time that they've really blocked anything that Germany and the European Commission has wanted done. And let's wait until after let's see what happens with the European parliamentary elections, because I can easily see Italy blocking the re-upping of Russian sanctions later in the year. Remember, it only takes one to end them. So your hairstyle is closer to Bill Burr than Rollins, at least. That's true. Bill Burr is funny, dude. I'm not a real big fan of most of this generation's comics, but let me tell you, Bill Burr is a funny motherfucker. Jesus. So he's good. Hey, Joe Rogan, the rest of them. That's it. So, all right. Well, there you go. All right. If you like what you heard tonight, or you didn't like what you heard tonight, but you're willing to like suffer it again, come back on Friday night at 8:30. We'll do this again. Hopefully my voice will hold out that long. Now I'm drinking tea with lemon in it while I do these, because by the time I'm done with them, my voice hurts. And if we're going to do super chats, that could go on for more than an hour, because I will stay here sucking money from you people happily for as long as you want to throw it at me, because I am a trained circus seal. So, though I won't do the, I won't do the clerks thing. You're all thinking of. So there it is. You guys take care. You have a great evening. I'll be back on YouTube at some point in the future. We're looking at 2,000 people now on YouTube. Hopefully we'll be at, I don't know, 3,000, 4,000 by the end of the month. That would be fucking awesome. All right, you guys take care. You be good. Keep your stick on the ice.